Hello and welcome to Module 3 of CAMWorks Fundamentals. And today we're going to go over the technology database and a little bit of understanding on how we're actually going to teach CAMWorks to understand how we program specifically at our shop. And what we're going to do first is we're just going to insert a quick little tool into this part we have here on the screen. And we're going to do that just so you guys can see the manual way to enter a tool. And then from there we'll jump into teaching the technology database how we want to machine our parts. So with this part here, a lot of the fundamentals that we have so far are just building on the previous modules that we have. We're going to start, instead of doing feature recognition like we've done in the past, as you would just go here and click feature recognition after your tool setup, we're actually just going to go to the stock manager, right click, and then select new mill part setup. And what that's going to do is it's going to come ask us, where do you want your Z reference plane to be? By default, it selects the front plane, so we'd be looking at machining it in this direction here with the Z going down. For what we want to do today, we actually just want to machine in this orientation here. So we're just going to simply select this face, and then that gives us the Z direction going down into the part, because we're just going to pick a couple pockets here to machine. So from here we'll select OK, and we now have our mill part set up. To manually insert any tools or do what we call traditional programming, we're just going to simply right click on the setup and insert a 2.5 axis feature. When we do that, it comes up with a list here where we have different types of 2.5 axis features we can run. For this example, we're just going to leave it at pocket, and then we're going to come out and we're just going to select these cylindrical edges on our part. And you'll notice in 2016 and beyond, it actually shades it a green color. If you're using an older version of CAMWorks, you may not get the translucent green shading. It'll just highlight the edge of the circle in green. So once we have those selected, we'll go to end condition. And now you can manually enter a depth, or one thing that I like to do here is I'll just rotate my part a little bit, and I'll zoom in so you can see it. And I just click the bottom face, and all of those now automatically go to that depth. One of the nice things about doing it this way is if someone comes and changes that pocket depth in the SolidWorks file, CAMWorks will automatically rebuild and adjust that depth. If you manually put in a number over here as a blind condition like you would with a blind extrude in SolidWorks, then you have to manually change it each time. So generally when I program, if I can select a face, I just generally go up to face if I can. From here, we'll just hit OK, and we now have those circular pockets added. Zoom out just a little bit. And once we have those circular pockets added, we're just going to create an operation, and then we're going to create a toolpath. And we do that by just right-clicking, selecting Generate Operation Plan. It goes and grabs the tools, and then we go and generate the toolpath. And you can see that one of them generated the toolpath, one of them did not. The reason it did not is because the tool may be a little too large for what we're going to machine out here. So this brings into a good example of using the technology database. Let's say traditionally we don't have a 0.2344 end mill. And whenever we see pockets of this size and this depth, we want CAMWorks just to use, say, a 3/16 or an 1/8 inch end mill. Instead of using a weird diameter, we want to tell CAMWorks, hey, it's okay to use something that we have in our library. So we do that by simply just changing these features the way we want first, and then we update the technology database. This is one method to teach CAMWorks how to make the program the way that you want it. This is the way I generally recommend people to do, is just program your parts, get everything the way you want, and then save your operation plan. And as you do that, you'll teach the database how, when, where, and why to pick the tools and do the speeds and feeds and lead in and lead out. You can go through the database, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, but the most productive way is just teach it as you go, and after a week or 2 weeks, depending upon how much you program every day, you'll have about 80% of CAMWorks taught to pick the tools you want when you want to do it. Now, one of the things I always recommend is use the 80-20 rule. If you're programming one weird one-off part, it's probably not in your best interest to save the operation plan on that one-off part. What you generally want to do is the parts you program 80% of the time, day in, day out, same shapes and sizes and depths, and those are the ones you want to teach CamWorks to follow, because then on your day-to-day bulk of your programming, everything gets narrowed down and everything starts to just flow, and you don't have to check as much of the program, and it just speeds everything up. The last 20% is always a little bit hard to narrow down, just like if you're using a CAD tool or any other piece of software. The last 20% is really where you want to spend your time, because that requires the most effort and the most attention to detail. So if we automate CamWorks to do the 80%, then the 20% is left open for us to really get in and do the really cool, fun stuff.